Eric Walsh finished coding a complex project and smiled. He would be home early to surprise his wife, Kate, and children. But in their San Francisco home, to the tune of unfamiliar music, he heard words that shattered his world. "He's just a wallet, Robert. Soon I will have everything." Kate's betrayal was only the beginning. Eric didn't break. He started planning. Can he protect his family and get justice without losing himself? Eric Walsh tapped the final line of code into his laptop, the soft click of the keys echoing in the quiet of his rented Los Angeles apartment. At 38, he was a senior software engineer for a San Francisco tech startup, and this latest project, a security system for a fintech giant, had kept him away from home for 3 days. The screen glowed with the satisfying green of a successful compile. Done. Earlier than expected. A rare smile tugged at his lips as he leaned back in the chair, stretching his lean frame. He could catch a flight tonight and surprise Kate and the kids by morning. Outside, a light drizzle painted the city in a hazy sheen, typical for an LA spring evening. Eric checked his watch at 6:15 p.m. If he hurried, he could be at the airport by 7, home by midnight. The thought of seeing his wife, Kate, and their children, 13-year-old Sophie and 9-year-old Liam, warmed him against the chill seeping through the window. He pictured Sophie's curious grin as she showed him her latest coding project, Liam's boundless energy as he begged to kick a soccer ball in the backyard. Kate would probably have a glass of wine waiting, her hazel eyes crinkling with that familiar warmth. 15 years of marriage hadn't dulled the comfort of their routine. Eric packed with his usual precision, laptop in its sleeve, charger coiled neatly, toiletries in a Ziploc. The apartment looked untouched as he left, bed made, dishes washed, a habit from years of balancing chaos with order. The drive to the airport was quick, and by 11:45 p.m., he was landing in San Francisco, the city's fog wrapping around him like an old friend. He rented a car and headed for their home in No Valley, a 2-story craftsman with ivy climbing its facade. The streets were quiet, the rain now a faint mist. As he pulled into the driveway, the house glowed softly, its windows spilling golden light into the night. Eric grabbed his overnight bag, anticipation quickening his steps along the stone path to the front door. He turned the key quietly, wanting to catch them off guard, maybe sneak into the kitchen and start breakfast before anyone woke up. The house smelled of Kate's favorite citrus candles, but something felt off. Instead of the jazz she loved, a pulsing pop beat drifted from upstairs, unfamiliar and jarring. He set his bag down in the entryway, frowning slightly, and called out, "Kate? Sophie? Anyone home?" No answer. The music thumped on, louder now as he moved toward the staircase. His boots were silent on the hardwood, a reflex from years of sneaking in late after crunching deadlines. The kids were probably asleep, he reasoned, and Kate might be in her office, lost in a book or her phone. He climbed the steps, hand trailing along the polished banister, the wood cool under his fingers. The master bedroom door was ajar, a sliver of light cutting across the hallway carpet. He pushed it open, mouth ready to call her name, when her voice stopped him cold. "He's just a wallet, Robert," Kate said, her tone light but edged with something sharp, unfamiliar. "Give it a few more weeks, and I'll have everything: house, money, the kids. Divorce is just paperwork at this point." Eric froze, 1 foot over the threshold. Kate sat on their bed, her back to the door, phone pressed to her ear. She hadn't seen him. Her auburn hair fell loose over her shoulders, and she wore the silk robe he'd bought her for their anniversary. The sight twisted something in his chest, but he didn't move, didn't breathe. Her laughter filled the room, carefree yet cruel, like a stranger's. "He doesn't suspect a thing," she continued. "Always glued to his laptop, never notices what's right under his nose. By next month, I'll serve him the papers, and we'll be free, baby." The words hit like ice water, each one a shard sinking into his skin. Eric's mind raced, but his body stayed still, years of high-stakes debugging honing his ability to stay calm under pressure. He stepped back silently, retreating into the hallway's shadows. The closet door was cracked open, and through it, he caught Kate's reflection in the bedroom mirror. She was smiling, no, grinning, twirling a strand of hair around her finger. "Yes, I've planned it all," she said. "My lawyer says I'll get at least half, plus his company shares. The kids? They'll adjust. They barely see him anyway, always working." That was a lie. Eric had coached Liam's soccer team, stayed up late helping Sophie debug her first Python script, planned family hikes in Marin. Kate was the one who missed school events, claiming migraines or girls' nights. He felt his pulse slow, his mind sharpening. Anger simmered, but he pushed it down, letting logic take over. Every word she spoke was data, a piece of a puzzle he'd solve later. I love you too, Kate said softly, her voice dropping to a purr. Just wait, Robert. It's almost over. She hung up, still unaware of him, and stood to adjust her robe in the mirror, humming to the music. Eric backed away, silent as a ghost. He descended the stairs, grabbed his bag, and slipped out the front door, easing it shut to avoid any sound. Back in the car, he sat motionless, the engine off, staring at the house that no longer felt like his. The betrayal wasn't just an affair, it was the coldness, the calculation, the months of lies. She wanted his money, his home, his children. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel, but his face remained blank. He started the car. He'd drive for an hour, maybe two, then return as if he'd just landed. He'd hug Sophie and Liam, kiss Kate's cheek, and play the part of the clueless husband. Because Eric Walsh didn't react with outbursts or tears. He responded with strategy. As the city lights blurred past, he began to plan. Kate thought she'd outsmarted him, but she'd underestimated one thing. Eric always found the bug in the code, no matter how well it was hidden. And this time, the bug was her. Eric Walsh woke the next morning in his San Francisco home, the familiar scent of coffee and citrus candles filling the air. His eyes opened to the soft gray light filtering through the bedroom curtains, but the warmth of routine felt hollow. Kate slept beside him, her breathing steady, her face serene in a way that now seemed like a mask. The memory of her phone call last night, her cold laughter, her words about taking everything, played on a loop in his mind. He lay still, staring at the ceiling, his heart a steady drumbeat of resolve. Today, he'd start unraveling her plan. He slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake her, and padded downstairs in his socks. The house was silent, the kids still asleep. In the kitchen, he brewed coffee, the machines hum a small comfort as he plotted his next steps. Eric wasn't a man of rash decisions. He built systems, found patterns, fixed what was broken. Kate's betrayal was just another problem to solve, and he'd approach it with the same precision he applied to code. But first, he needed information, hard evidence of her intentions. By 7 a.m., Sophie shuffled into the kitchen, her dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, her phone in hand. At 13, she had her father's sharp mind and a quiet intensity that made Eric proud. "Morning, Dad," she mumbled, grabbing a banana from the counter. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," Eric said, forcing a smile. "Big day at work. You got that coding project ready for school?" She nodded, but her eyes flicked to the staircase, a flicker of unease crossing her face. Mom was acting weird last night. Kept checking her phone, then locked herself in her office. Sophie's voice was casual, but Eric caught the question in it. He kept his tone light. "Probably just work stuff. You know how she gets." But his mind cataloged the detail. Kate's office, her phone. He'd check both later. Liam bounded in next, all energy and untied shoelaces, demanding pancakes. Eric obliged, flipping batter onto the griddle while steering the conversation to soccer and school, anything to keep the morning normal. Kate appeared last, her auburn hair perfect, her smile as polished as ever. "You're spoiling them, Eric," she teased, pouring coffee. Her hand brushed his arm, and he fought the urge to pull away. "Someone's gotta," he replied, meeting her eyes briefly. They held no hint of guilt, just the same warmth she'd faked for years. He wondered how he'd missed it, the stranger behind the woman he'd loved. After dropping the kids at school, Eric drove to his office in Soma, a sleek space filled with monitors and whiteboards. But instead of diving into his codebase, he locked his door and opened a private browser. First, he searched for Robert in San Francisco, cross-referencing gyms and social media. A name popped up, Robert Clark, 35, owner of Peak Pulse Fitness in the Mission District. His Instagram was public, littered with photos of weights, protein shakes, and, buried in the archives, a shot of him and Kate at a rooftop bar, her arm around his waist. The date was 18 months ago, when Kate had claimed to be at a work conference. Eric's jaw tightened, but he kept digging. He needed more than a photo. He emailed a contact from a past project, a private investigator named John Kerr, with a reputation for discretion. "Need background on someone," Eric wrote, attaching Robert's details and a vague description of Kate's behavior. "Urgent. Confidential." By noon, John replied, "Got it." Give me 48 hours. Eric leaned back, exhaling. The wheels were in motion. That evening, he watched Kate closely. She moved through dinner with practiced ease, laughing at Liam's stories, asking Sophie about her coding club. But Eric noticed new tells, the way her phone stayed face down, the quick glances when she thought no one was looking. After the kids went to bed, she retreated to her home office, claiming she had emails to catch up on. Eric waited 10 minutes, then slipped upstairs. Her office door was locked, a new habit. He pressed his ear to the wood, catching muffled words. Not yet. Just wait. He doesn't know. His pulse quickened, but he didn't knock. Instead, he went to their bedroom and checked her nightstand while she was distracted. Nothing unusual. Lip balm, a novel, a charging cable. Then he spotted her purse on the dresser, half open. Inside, tucked in a side pocket, was a business card. Veronica Tate, family law attorney. On the back, in Kate's handwriting, call Re, settlement options. Eric's stomach twisted. She wasn't just planning a divorce, she was strategizing to take everything. He snapped a photo of the card and returned it, his hands steady despite the storm in his chest. The next day, Sophie came home from school quieter than usual. While Liam played video games, she lingered in the kitchen where Eric was chopping vegetables. Dad, she said, her voice low, I found something in Mom's office. I wasn't snooping, I swear. I needed printer paper. She hesitated, pulling her phone from her pocket. It's a letter. I took a picture. Eric wiped his hands and took the phone. The image showed a document on Kate's desk, addressed to her from Veronica Tate. Phrases jumped out: 60% asset division, primary custody, company shares. The letter outlined a plan to claim Eric's stake in his startup, worth millions, and suggested allegations of emotional neglect to sway a judge. Eric's grip tightened, but he kept his face neutral. Thanks, Soph, he said, handing back the phone. Don't tell anyone about this, okay? Not even Liam. She nodded, her eyes searching his. Are you and Mom okay? We're fine, he lied, ruffling her hair. Just grown-up stuff. But inside, he was reeling. Kate wasn't just cheating, she was building a case to destroy him, to take the kids and his life's work. Sophie's discovery was a gift, but it also meant she was caught in the crossfire. He'd have to protect her, too. John Kerr called that night, after Kate had gone to bed. Your wife's been busy, he said, his voice gruff. Robert Clark's been her +1 for 2 years, hotels, restaurants, even a weekend in Napa when you were at that Vegas conference. But it's not just him. I've got records of her meeting a guy named Daniel Weiss, venture capitalist, 3 years ago, and a gallery owner, Marcus Holt, before that. She's careful, but not careful enough. Eric scribbled names on a notepad, his pen digging into the paper. Anything else? Yeah. She's been emailing Veronica Tate for 6 months. Looks like she's planning to hit you with an abuse claim. Nothing physical, just enough to make you look unfit. Wants the kids and your company. I'm pulling financials next. You want me to keep going? Yes, Eric said, his voice like steel. Everything you can find. He hung up, staring at the notepad. Kate's affairs were one thing, but this, fabricating lies to steal his children, his future, was a war he hadn't seen coming. He opened his laptop and started an encrypted file, Kate evidence. Phone records, the attorney's card, Sophie's photo, John's findings. Every piece was a brick in the wall he'd built to protect his family. As he worked, a memory surfaced, Kate's smile on their wedding day, her hand in his, promising forever. Had it all been a lie, even then? He pushed the thought away. Questions could wait. Right now, he needed to stay sharp, to outmaneuver her before she struck. Kate thought she held all the cards, but Eric was already rewriting the game. Eric Walsh sat at his desk in the quiet of his San Francisco home office, the glow of his laptop casting sharp shadows across his face. It was Friday night, a week since he'd overheard Kate's betrayal, and the pieces of his plan were falling into place. The encrypted file labeled Kate Evidence now held a damning collection: phone logs, photos, emails from her attorney, and John Kerr's reports confirming her affairs with Robert Clark and others. But the most chilling find was her scheme to accuse Eric of emotional abuse, a lie designed to strip him of his children and his company. Tonight, he'd take the first step to turn her game against her. Downstairs, Kate was hosting a dinner party for their neighbors, her laughter drifting up through the floorboards like a performance. Eric had agreed to the event, knowing it would keep her distracted. He'd spent the week playing the perfect husband, helping Liam with homework, joking with Sophie about her coding club, kissing Kate goodnight, while meeting secretly with his attorney, Lisa Green. Lisa, a sharp-eyed woman with a knack for family law, had reviewed the evidence and laid out a strategy. She's overconfident, Lisa had said, tapping the file. We can use that. Let her think she's winning, then hit her with the truth. Eric opened a draft document Lisa had sent, a divorce agreement that looked generous on the surface but hid a trap. It waived Kate's right to his company shares and limited her to personal assets, her car, jewelry, a small savings account. The trick was in the fine print, buried in legalese she'd likely skim. If she signed without a lawyer's review, she'd lose any claim to Eric's wealth. Lisa had also prepared a second document, a decoy to bait Kate into acting too soon. Eric's fingers hovered over the keyboard, refining the wording. Timing was everything. A knock at the door startled him. Sophie poked her head in, her dark eyes wary. "Mom's asking for you downstairs," she said. "She's acting all extra." At 13, Sophie had a knack for reading people, and Eric knew she sensed the tension. "Be right there," he said, closing his laptop. "You okay?" She shrugged, lingering in the doorway. "She keeps talking about some big announcement tonight. Is it about, you know?" Her voice dropped, referencing the letter she'd found in Kate's office. Eric stood, squeezing her shoulder. "Don't worry, sophomore. I've got this." He hated lying to her, but the truth would hurt more. She nodded, unconvinced, and headed back downstairs. The dining room was alive with chatter, fairy lights twinkling above the table where Kate held court. She wore a sleek black dress, her auburn hair gleaming, every inch the charming hostess. Liam sat at the kids' table, giggling with a neighbor's son, while Sophie picked at her food, watching her mother. Eric slid into his seat, nodding at familiar faces, colleagues, friends, people who'd known them for years. Kate raised her wine glass, catching his eye with a smile that didn't reach her soul. "To good friends and new beginnings," she toasted, her voice warm. The guests clinked glasses, but Eric's pulse quickened. He knew what was coming. As dessert was served, Kate stood, her expression shifting to practiced sorrow. "Everyone, I need to share something," she said, her hand resting on Eric's shoulder. He kept his face neutral, though her touch felt like a brand. "Eric and we've decided to part ways. It's been a tough call, but we're filing for divorce." Gasps rippled through the room. A neighbor dropped her fork. Sophie's head snapped up, her eyes locking on Eric, while Liam looked confused, clutching his spoon. Kate's grip tightened, expecting him to crumble, to argue, to give her the scene she'd scripted. Instead, Eric rose, his smile calm, almost amused. "I agree, Kate," he said, his voice steady. "It's time." He pulled a folder from his jacket, the decoy document Lisa had crafted, and placed it on the table. "I had my lawyer draw this up. It's fair, splits everything evenly, protects the kids. If you're ready, you can sign now." The room froze. Kate blinked, caught off guard. She'd planned to control the narrative, to paint him as the villain later, but Eric's move flipped the script. Her fingers twitched toward the folder, hesitating. "Here?" she asked, glancing at the guests, who watched with bated breath. "Why not?" Eric said, handing her a pen. "We're among friends. Let's make it official." Kate's smile faltered, but pride pushed her forward. She couldn't back down without looking weak. She opened the folder, skimming the first page, her eyes glazing over the dense text. The wine, the attention, her own arrogance, it all worked against her. She signed with a flourish, initialing each page, and slid it back to Eric. "There," she said, her voice tight. "Done." The guests clapped awkwardly, unsure if this was a stunt or a tragedy. Sophie stared at her plate, her knuckles white. Liam whispered to a friend, oblivious. Eric tucked the folder away, his heart pounding but his face serene. The document was meaningless, a prop to lull Kate into complacency. The real agreement would come later, when her guard was down. After the guests left, Kate cornered him in the kitchen, her facade cracking. "What was that, Eric?" she hissed, her arms crossed. "You think you're clever, springing that on me?" "You wanted a divorce," he said, rinsing a glass. "I gave you what you asked for." She stepped closer, her perfume sharp. "Don't play games. I know you're up to something." Eric met her gaze, unflinching. "Sleep well, Kate." He walked past her, leaving her alone with her doubts. The next morning, John Kerr called with an update. "Got something big," he said. "Kate's been funneling money to Robert's gym, small transfers, but they add up. Looks like he's using it to dodge taxes, maybe worse. I'm digging into his accounts. Also, her lawyer's pushing for a meeting next week. She's planning to file abuse claims, says she's got witnesses." Eric's jaw clenched. Witnesses? Kate had no proof, only lies she'd spun. "Find out who she's talking to," he said, "and send me Robert's financials." "On it," John replied. Watch your back. She's desperate. Eric hung up, his mind racing. Kate's web was wider than he'd thought, but every thread he pulled exposed her further. He texted Lisa. She signed the decoy. Moved to Phase 2. Phase 2 meant locking down his assets, transferring company shares to a trust for Sophie and Liam, securing his savings in offshore accounts, leaving just enough in their joint account to avoid suspicion. If Kate wanted a fight, she'd find nothing to grab. That afternoon, he took the kids to Golden Gate Park, needing air and normalcy. Liam kicked a soccer ball, laughing as Eric blocked his shots. Sophie sat on a bench, coding on her tablet, but her glances at Eric were heavy. "Dad," she said finally, "Mom's lying about you, isn't she? I heard her on the phone last night, talking about court stuff." Eric knelt beside her, choosing his words carefully. "Your mom and I have some disagreements, sophomore. But I promise, I'll keep you and Liam safe." "Okay." She nodded, but her eyes were older than her years. "I trust you," she whispered. As they walked back to the car, Eric felt the weight of her faith and the fire of his resolve. Kate thought she could outmaneuver him, but she'd miscalculated. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for them. Eric Walsh stood in the living room of his No Valley home, the late afternoon sun filtering through the windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. It had been 10 days since Kate signed the decoy divorce agreement at her own dinner party, believing she'd outplayed him. The memory of her smug flourish as she pinned her name fueled Eric's focus. Now, with the real divorce papers ready and his assets secured, he was poised to unravel her lies. But first, he had to face Sophie and Liam, to shield them from the storm he knew was coming. The kids were sprawled on the couch, Sophie scrolling on her tablet, Liam building a Lego spaceship. Eric cleared his throat, setting his coffee mug down. "Guys, we need to talk," he said, his voice steady but soft. Sophie's eyes snapped up, wary, while Liam kept stacking bricks, oblivious. "Your mom and I, we're getting divorced. It's official now." Liam's hands froze mid-brick. "Like for real?" he asked, his voice small. Sophie said nothing, but her jaw tightened, her gaze boring into Eric as if searching for the whole truth. "Yeah, buddy," Eric said, sitting across from them. "It's not because of anything you did. Sometimes adults, they grow apart." He hated the cliché, but the real story, Kate's affairs, her plot to take everything, was too raw for them. "I'll always be here for you, no matter what. This house, our routines, that stays the same." Sophie crossed her arms. "She's lying about you, isn't she?" "I know she is." Her voice trembled, a mix of anger and fear. Eric's heart ached. She'd seen too much already, finding that lawyer's letter, overhearing Kate's calls. "Not now, Soph," Eric said gently. "We'll sort it out. I just need you to trust me." Liam's eyes welled up. "Will we have to move? Or live with Mom?" He crawled into Eric's lap, a rare moment of vulnerability for a boy who usually bounced through life. "No moving," Eric promised, hugging him tight. "You'll stay with me. Your mom will visit, and you can see her when you're ready." He looked at Sophie, who nodded, her expression hard but resolute. The weight of their trust anchored him, but it also sharpened his resolve. Kate wouldn't take them. Not now, not ever. That evening, John Kerr, the private investigator, sent an encrypted file. Eric opened it in his locked office, the hum of his laptop the only sound. The report was explosive. Robert Clark, Kate's lover, wasn't just a gym owner. He'd been using his business to launder money, funneling cash through fake memberships and offshore accounts. Kate had transferred $50,000 from their joint savings to his gym over 2 years, disguised as consulting fees. Worse, John had traced emails between Kate and Robert, joking about Eric as the cash machine, while planning to split the profits after her divorce settlement. Eric's blood ran cold, but the final blow was a recorded call John had intercepted. Legal or not, Eric didn't care. In it, Kate told Robert, "If the abuse angle doesn't work, I'll say he's unfit. He's always working. The kids barely know him." The lie stung, but it was proof of her strategy. Paint Eric as a neglectful father to win custody and his fortune. He forwarded the file to Lisa Green, his attorney, with a note. "This is it. File tomorrow." Then he made a call he'd been holding back. Using a burner phone, he tipped off the city's financial crimes unit about Robert's gym, attaching key documents from John's report. Anonymous, untraceable. By morning, Robert would have bigger problems than Kate's divorce. The next day, Eric was at his office in Soma when Lisa called. "Papers are filed," she said. "Kate's lawyer, Veronica Tate, got served an hour ago. She's furious, says you tricked her with that party stunt. But the decoy worked. She waived her rights to your shares, and with this evidence, her abuse claims won't stand. We're pushing for primary custody." "Good," Eric said, staring out at the city skyline. "What about Robert?" Lisa chuckled. "You didn't hear? Feds raided his gym this morning. Tax evasion, money laundering. He's in custody." Eric allowed himself a small nod. The dominoes were falling. That night, Kate showed up at the house unannounced, her face pale, her designer coat wrinkled. Eric opened the door, blocking her path. "What do you want, Kate?" "You bastard," she spat, her voice low to avoid waking the kids. "You set him up. Robert's arrested because of you." Her eyes were wild, mascara smudged, a far cry from the polished woman who'd toasted her victory days ago. "I don't know what you're talking about," Eric said, his tone even. "Sounds like Robert made his own mess." She stepped closer, her breath sharp with wine. "You think you've won? I'll fight this, Eric. The kids, the money, I'll get what's mine." He held her gaze, unflinching. "You signed away your claim, Kate. And the kids? They're not pawns in your game." He pulled out his phone, showing her a screenshot of her email to Robert, the one calling Eric a cash machine. Her face crumpled. "Where did you?" she started, then stopped, realizing the depth of his preparation. "Please, Eric. I messed up. I'll end it with Robert. Let's fix this, for Sophie and Liam." Eric shook his head, his voice cold. "I'll pay for an apartment for 3 months for their sake. That's it. You made your choices." He opened the door wider, signaling her to leave. Kate's shoulders slumped, tears spilling. "You're heartless," she whispered, but she walked out, her heels clicking into the foggy night. Upstairs, Sophie stood at the landing, her face pale. "I heard her," she said, clutching her hoodie. "She's awful, Dad. I don't want to see her." Eric climbed the stairs, pulling her into a hug. "You don't have to, sophomore. Not until you're ready." But as he held her, he saw Liam in his doorway, eyes wide, confused. "Is Mom okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. "She will be," Eric said, guiding him back to bed. "We all will." Tucking Liam in, he felt the boy's small hand grip his, and the weight of his role, father, protector, settled deeper. The next morning, news of Robert's arrest was everywhere. Local blogs buzzed with headlines, "Mission Gym owner charged in fraud scheme." Kate called Eric's phone repeatedly, leaving voicemails that swung from rage to desperation. "You've ruined everything." "Then please, I'm sorry, talk to me." He deleted them, forwarding only the relevant ones to Lisa for the custody case. Sophie stayed quiet at breakfast, her eyes red, while Liam chattered about school, sensing the tension but dodging it. Eric drove them to class, promising pizza night later, a small anchor in the chaos. Back home, he opened his laptop, reviewing Lisa's latest filing. The evidence was airtight: Kate's transfers to Robert, her emails, the false abuse plan. She'd have no leverage in court. But as Eric stared at the screen, a flicker of doubt crept in, not about his plan, but about its cost. Sophie's anger, Liam's confusion, how much would this scar them? He pushed the thought aside. Kate had started this war, and he'd finish it, not for revenge, but for his kid's future. Still, the house felt emptier without her laughter, fake or not, and he wondered if justice would fill that void. His phone buzzed. John Kerr. "Found something else," the investigator said. "Kate's got a storage unit downtown. Paid cash, no paper trail. Want me to check it out?" "Do it," Eric said, his voice firm. Whatever Kate was hiding, he'd find it. The truth was his weapon, and he wasn't done wielding it yet. Eric Walsh stood on the porch of his new home in Portland, Oregon, a craftsman-style house with a wraparound deck and a backyard big enough for Liam to practice soccer. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp leaves, a far cry from the frenetic hum of San Francisco. It had been a year since the divorce was finalized, a year since Kate's world unraveled under the weight of her own lies. Eric sipped his coffee, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, and felt something he hadn't in a long time: peace. Inside, Sophie was sprawled at the kitchen table, her laptop open, coding a website for her school's journalism club. At 14, she'd grown taller, her dark hair now streaked with purple, a quiet rebellion against the chaos of the past. Liam, 10, wrestled with their lanky Labrador, Max, giggling as the dog licked his face. The house buzzed with life, new furniture, bright paint, photos of hikes and game nights on the walls. It wasn't just a home, it was a fresh start, built on trust and time. The move to Portland had been Eric's idea, a chance to leave behind the ghosts of No Valley. Sophie had jumped at it, eager for a new school where no one knew her story. Liam had been hesitant, worried about leaving his soccer team, but the promise of a dog sealed the deal. Max, a rescue with soulful eyes, had become their shadow, curling up beside them at night, a furry anchor in their healing. Eric's phone buzzed, a text from Emma Carter, the investigative journalist he'd met at a tech conference 6 months ago. Running late, but I'll bring pastries. Kids still want blueberry scones. He smiled, typing back, always. See you soon. Emma had slipped into their lives slowly, first as a friend who helped Sophie with a school project, then as something more. Her sharp wit and warm laugh had thawed parts of Eric he thought were gone forever. She wasn't Kate. She didn't need to be. She was real, and that was enough. The past year hadn't been easy. After Robert's arrest and Kate's financial collapse, the divorce hearing had been swift. Lisa Green presented the evidence. Kate's emails, her money transfers, the fabricated abuse claims, and the judge ruled in Eric's favor. He kept the house, his company shares, and primary custody of Sophie and Liam. Kate got her personal assets, a car, some jewelry, and court-ordered visitation rights. But Sophie refused to see her, her anger a wall no apology could breach. Liam went occasionally, returning with stories of Kate's small apartment and strained smiles, torn between loyalty and hurt. Kate had moved to Chicago 3 months ago, taking a job as an administrative assistant at an insurance firm. The pay was modest, but it was steady, a step toward rebuilding. She called Liam every Sunday, sent Sophie emails that went unanswered. Eric didn't push either child. He'd promised them choices, and he meant it. Still, he wondered if Sophie's resolve would soften with time, or if Kate's betrayal had cut too deep. Today was different, though. Emma was coming over for brunch, a casual gathering with neighbors and a few friends from Eric's new job at a Portland cybersecurity firm. He'd scaled back his hours, working remotely 3 days a week to be there for school pickups and game nights. The kids loved it, and so did he. As he set out plates, Sophie wandered over, peering at the spread. You nervous about Emma meeting everyone? She teased, stealing a grape. Nervous? Me. Eric grinned, tossing her a napkin. What about you? Ready to show off that website? She rolled her eyes but smiled. It's not done yet. Emma's helping me debug the CSS tonight. Liam bounded in, Max at his heels. Can Max have a scone? He asked, already sneaking the dog a crumb. After brunch, Eric said, ruffling his hair. Go clean up. You smell like dog. The doorbell rang, and Liam raced to answer it, Max barking in excitement. Emma stood on the porch, her curly dark hair damp from the morning mist, a bakery box in hand. Delivery for the Walsh crew, she said, stepping inside. Liam hugged her, babbling about Max, while Sophie waved from the kitchen, her shyness fading. Eric took the box, their fingers brushing. You're a lifesaver, he said, leaning in for a quick kiss. Her eyes crinkled, and for a moment, the world was just them. Brunch was a blur of laughter and chatter. Neighbors swapped stories, kids ran through the backyard, and Emma fit in effortlessly, joking with Liam and nerding out with Sophie over code. Eric watched it all, his chest warm with a feeling he hadn't dared name a year ago, hope. This was his victory, not Kate's downfall, but this life, stitched together from broken pieces. Later, as guests left and the kids took Max for a walk, Eric and Emma cleaned up, stacking plates in companionable silence. You're quiet, she said, nudging him. Everything okay? He paused, drying a glass. Kate texted yesterday. Wants Liam to visit for Thanksgiving. Sophie, too. But that's not happening. Emma nodded, her face thoughtful. How's Liam feel? Confused. He wants to see her, but he's scared she'll disappoint him again. Eric set the glass down. I don't know how to help him navigate that. You're doing it, Emma said, touching his arm. You're honest with them. You're here. That's what counts. He looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. You're pretty good at this, you know. She laughed, tossing a sponge at him. Stick with me, Walsh. I've got more where that came from. That night, after the kids were in bed, Eric sat on the couch with Emma, a glass of wine in hand. The house was quiet, Max snoring by the fireplace. A year ago, I was someone else, he said. Let me know in the comments. What would you do if you found yourself in the shoes of the main characters, caught in a web of betrayal and revenge?